To learn more about how this could impact students in our state, we're joined by our state superintendent, Chris Rakedahl. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
So first, can you just explain some of the concerns here and what you guys are learning and what are the current concerns from this change of power?
Yeah, the Trump administration and U.S. Department of Education have spent months talking to constituents, particularly families with disabilities and nonprofit organizations around the country, and they all said, don't do this. When we pick up a phone and we make a complaint about a student potentially having their rights violated, we want an expedited process through attorneys at the U.S. Department of Education who know law and they know education law. And now it's a bureaucracy. Now you're going to get a hold of one agency. It's going to refer it to the Department of Justice, for example, or Health and Human Services in that case. They may or may not take it up. They may or may not hand it back to the U.S. Department of Education, who may or may not then work with a family or a school district somewhere in the country. So they've added bureaucracy, and I think that's troubling. And then on the civil rights front, they're moving that over to the Department of Justice. And so we know that's been really weaponized, and I think there's a lot of concern that folks won't get equal treatment under the law, that the Justice Department will pick and choose civil rights cases that fit the White House's agenda instead of civil rights protections.
Well, what are you guys currently doing to address some of these concerns? We know this is fresh, but like you said, this has been a conversation. This has been potentially anticipated. So what's next?
We're trying to remind folks that a lot of those cases can stop here because it's often a state civil rights protection or a state protection around students with disabilities that we can investigate here at OSPI and get resolution to. So there's an anxiety out there around, will any of this stuff ever work right again? And what we say to them is the bulk of that's going to be here with us, but there are cases that we do have to send or partner with the federal government. And in that case, we're going to insist on expedition. So how quickly can they get the case? We want them to say, this is when the investigation starts, this is who's going to be on the case, and this is when we're going to have our findings. So if we can push through that for districts and families, that'll be one of the pieces we're going to have to amp up here.
And like you said, transparency is a big key here. It sounds like communication is going to be very important moving forward. Speaking of, do you feel like this is going to impact a specific group more than the other, or maybe prevent a certain group from reporting issues under the civil rights umbrella?
Well, I think there's been a lot of folks commenting on national media that the Justice Department in particular picks and chooses cases that aren't exactly consistent with the volume of cases that come forward. So our worry is that students of color, those who have protections as a identified federal class because of race, will not get the same protections. We suspect that LGBTQ youth will not get the same protections. That seems to be the pattern, and obviously they don't disclose the data to tell us that, but that's what we'll be watching closely is there discrimination in the cases that they choose to take up? And if it's something we can't resolve in the state, then obviously we find ourselves in a very difficult position, wondering whether all students get equal protection under the law, whether they are a student protected by civil rights law directly or a student with disabilities.
And very quickly, final message to that parent or that student that may be watching and is feeling concerned or feeling unheard.
Two things. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that process is as streamlined as possible for families, that if they run into trouble with their schools and they bring it up through OSPI, that we get as much resolution within our state as possible. And two, we will be absolutely dogged in making sure that if these transitions do move forward, again, they're trying to do this without Congress, but if they move forward with these things, that we can be super clear on how families will get resolution if their case moves to a different federal agency or bounces back and forth.
Superintendent Chris Rakedahl, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.